We are. You're listening to Amar and
Jaff,
live on our incredible weekly radio show right here on Spice FM.
We'll be talking. What am I saying? I've fluffed my lines.
What? That's outrageous.
Whether you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can help, and we do help. Cool. Yeah.
How's you been, Amar?
Yeah, it's all right, Jeff. It's all right.
Yeah.
What about you?
Busy week.
Mental?
Yeah, I've been away. I've been away since Tuesday. Went to London for a few days, and I think you feel as though everything's getting back to normal in terms of, how busy the train was on the way down, the underground, all the shops, the restaurants. I think the only thing that's slightly different is probably the number of foreigners in London. Other than that, I think life is more or less where it was and where it used to be, with some big changes, I guess, also in terms of economically. The cost and the prices have all kind of just skyrocketed in the last couple of years, since the time that you've really been down to London.
Yeah, I'm down there in a couple of weeks actually at the Houses of Parliament, but I suppose that now depends on what's happening in worldwide affairs. It's slightly concerning, slightly scary, I think.
Yep.
Is the
well, it is very scary. I mean, it just depends where it escalates to and how far it all goes. It could. The worst case scenario is not something that we should even try and think about. The best case scenario is that there's some a quick end to the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, it is, as you say, quite scary and slightly concerning. And feel sorry for everyone caught in the middle of it. There's some quite disturbing scenes and images. And it's always I was going to say common people like us, but it's always the general public that ends up feeling the pain. And obviously nothing compares to how and what people are feeling in the midst of a war. We can only but imagine. But the ripple effect of that into our sort of own local area and communities and such like is the risk of full-scale war, the potential risk of a nuclear war, the immediate increase in costs associated with sort of utilities. All of the utility providers have simply stopped, full stop, their offering any type of rates to businesses. They're not fixing any rates. So if you tried to sign something, you'd struggle getting a fixed rate.
Now, but those that have the old contracts, they're going to be okay for a little bit longer until the contracts expire.
Yeah. Well, I think in all of our buildings, we're quite fortunate because we've had the support of great annual savings. We've done an incredible job. There's some very nefarious, sort of not very good and effective brokers out there over the years. What you hear about and see and things like that. But anyway, top and bottom of it is that it's not a great time. So coming back to London, Jaff, how prevalent was the fact that there weren't that many foreign people?
From friends that I'm in touch with in London, leisure hospitality in the West End, in Mayfair, is probably affected a lot more than anywhere else, because they rely on that kind of
hospitality in where?
In Mayfair, in the West End, you know, where all the West End, the Mayfair restaurants, they are not back to what they used to be, because it was mainly based on the foreigners, whether it be the Arabs or the Russians or just general visitors, well-to-do visitors coming into the city. They are still suffering, but the local businesses are still, they're all back to normal, very, very busy. I think we sat with some property developers, and they were explaining how the dynamic of that scene has changed a lot in London. So if you're living in the city, let's say in an expensive apartment which might be worth $1 million or $1.5 million, now people are quite prepared to move a little bit more to the outskirts, 20, 30 miles out, 40 miles out, because they don't have to go into the office as much. So that commute doesn't have to be on a daily basis. They can buy a 3-bedroom semi with a garden, a drive, and all the things that come with moving out of Central. So that shift is quite a big one, but it means that in the slightly nicer areas, you just can't get desirable properties because the demand is so outrageous that they don't even come to the agents. They don't even need to advertise them, because they've got people that have on the books that have said, give me property profiles of A, B, C, and D. So the property market is kind of booming in London. It's very, very expensive, gone up a lot. And these are some of the reasons for it.
Is it booming?
From what these particular developers were telling me, that's what they were saying. And for us going around and having a look just to understand the market, you could see definitely for sure how the prices have gone up a lot more. And the super duper ones, they are the kind of second batch, if you want to call it that. The properties that the state agents have is the second batch of properties, because the first batch, they're not even advertised. They're gone before they even reach.
And actually, we're going to continue to see issues and challenges associated with properties and access. But we mentioned the challenges with the landlords and how they're moving tenants out to really increase rents, because people are prepared to pay the rents. However, over the last few weeks, Jaff, in particular, because of the interest rate rises, because of inflation, which has continued to grow, because of numerous various factors, right? It's literally changed within the space of a few weeks. In fact, I know people are now struggling with things like finance to buy properties. Banks are being a bit more constrained and restricted in their offer. Affordability is a big issue as well. And if I just look at locally here and across Newcastle as an example, a number of properties across different price ranges, but anything primarily over 500k has been sold and then is coming back on the market because people aren't able to secure and procure. And that ripple effect, and in particular, the restrictions on foreign Russian money is going to have a bigger impact in London than in any city, anywhere else in the world. So you're going to start seeing, you know, a slightly more volatile property market, and actually, anyone considering anything right now may be better off holding back slightly.
Yeah, it's difficult, Amar, to gauge. I mean, we're just on the ground and we're not really too sure. I mean, there's obviously certain individuals, big investors who really study macroeconomics and impacts of wars on the economy and things like that. I guess it's to try and delve into that and get as much information as possible. So on the ground, you're in a better place to make those big judgments, because buying a property is the commitment that you must have with it, the repayments, the longevity of the repayments, you know, the securing the interest rates in a volatile economic environment. Similarly to the gas and electric, Amar, you know, are the fixed rate interest rates, are they still available? Because, or are they, is it similarly to the gas and electric, are the banks beginning to say that actually we can't, you know, offer you a fixed rate anymore? Because if that was the case, that would obviously increase more volatility within the property market too.
Well, a lot of the lenders have just pulled a lot of the lower, more attractive rates, Jeff, and that's not just happening sort of on the back of an interest rate rise. That's happening a lot more. So, you know, listen, everything's a gamble. The one thing about property is, if you take a longer term view, then naturally there's you know, you have more of a cycle to go through. If you're looking at, right, can I put some money into this? Can I borrow a little bit of money, or can I do whatever? I've got some cash type thing there, and I'm buying at a peak. Well, you have a big risk. There's a huge risk around that. If you're buying at the top of a cycle, well, it's only going to go one way, isn't it? Having said that, if you can, so from an investment point of view, right, if you're going to look at things, spread bet is probably a good thing to do. So, you know, if you sat on 100K and you can go out and, rather than buy one property, go out, buy 4 properties, buy to let for 100K each, you're using up 25K of yours, but the rest is secured against the property. That level of volatility, you know, allows you to have some diverse portfolio. It also ensures that, you know, if something's wrong with one, you've got sort of resilience on the others. And actually, there's still some relatively good buy-to-let type of mortgages. The problem with buy-to-let is how painful government has made it, right? So there's no reliefs, there's additional stamp, there's all of these things from a tax point of view and all of that. I must admit that I'm just sort of, you know, looking at disposing of it and putting it into sort of longer term investments, as in, if you'd put it into Google, Apple 2 years ago, they've all increased 200%.
I mean, it's difficult because historically they always said that bricks and mortar was the one where you managed to kind of secure your investment for the longest term. And since the Second World War, I think it's been the most stable investment to be had, hasn't it? Properties.
And look, and it goes back to this, right? And because of how challenging and painful it is, right, Jeff? I mean, in the next year or two, you know, the cost to commercial properties to deal with climate change and energy performance type challenges is in the range of, so your restaurants, you're talking about £200,000 to £300,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
What in what to spend per restaurant to?
Yeah, to comply with government's regulation with energy.
I mean, people got a business though. A lot of businesses. A lot of businesses are going to just go bankrupt if they have to invest that kind of money.
So that's a property type of challenge. So if you're buying, fair enough, right? If I was looking at, and it is something that I'm exploring, you know, look, we're building this international space station at the airport. It's a few £1 million. It's 10,000 square foot. That's being built now, right? And the value of that, because an out-of-town office space is going to be far more valuable than a city centre one, especially if it has some ancillary support type activities around it. The likelihood is we will just, you know, sort of build more there. We've got access to sort of 500,000 square foot of additional space. So it's not that I'm saying I'm not looking at certain things, but you know, bricks and mortar, if you can get it to work, if you can get it to stack up, great. It's when you know, it doesn't that it becomes a real challenge. So it's a similar type of risk with anything, Jaff. I mean, arguably, just keeping your money in a bank and sitting on it, and even getting 1% on it is not the end of the world. But you're losing money because of the price of living and everything else. So, you know, £10 10 years ago isn't £10 now.
I mean, inflation is very, very high. I think the future is, gosh, the costs that are going to go up. I think the costs are going to continue to spiral more on a constant basis.
I think if you're running restaurants, like, it's the end of the world.
Well, it's going to be challenging, but I'm more worried about people and the cost in order to maintain a home. And are you going to?
I think that's outrageous. I think that's outrageous. I think I mentioned a story last week around I was listening to a lady. She had 2 jobs. Her husband's got 2 jobs, and they don't know how they're going to pay the rent and the bills and feed the kids. Yeah. And these people have got like 2 jobs. These aren't, you know, people on benefits or people who are claiming sort of any type of social support. They're not entitled to it.
Yeah. I'm not just the 3-bedroom properties. I mean, you know, I know firsthand that I know individuals that used to pay about $650 for a 3-bedroom standard flat, and that same standard flat has gone up to $950. Now, if that is the going rate, or let's average that out. A 3-bedroom flat, you're talking around about £800 for the rent alone. Put the bills on top, you're looking at what? At least £1,000 a month, maybe £1,100 a month. Well, let's round up to £1,000 a month. Now that's a lot of money. If you're earning $2.5 grand a month, that means your salary is something like 40 grand a year. But how many people are earning 40 grand a year or more? So let's say if you base yourself on a £35,000 a year salary, you're probably getting something like 2 grand a month. And 50% of your cost is just your rent and your bills. Then you have £250 left a week to kind of pay for everything else. So, you know, that is a real worry. And it's a real worry that, as you say, to begin with, if utility prices keep on going up, and general cost of living keep on going up, food and clothing and everything else that you come across, going into town, parking your car, you know, everyone's going to be really, really squeezed. The minimum wage goes up in April, and that's then going to squeeze all the businesses. So it's a kind of it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, at the moment? And I think it's the
Well,
worst
I think, yeah, and war, is good for the country generally. However, has a huge impact on the economy and the price of goods and everything else even more.
I mean, I hate that saying, though. I know I've heard it so many times before that wars are good for the countries in terms of somehow it generates income because weapons are being used, but it's just a horrible way to look at it, isn't it? The war is like good. No war is bad. Even those that make weapons, they shouldn't be standing there, rubbing their hands thinking, yes, we're going to make lots of money, but you're making lots of money at the cost of people's lives. And is that a kind of, I wonder how they feel, those people that are going to kind of make their business are going to flourish because of products being used in the war. It must be a very, very challenging moral position that they face. Or do they face it? Maybe they're immune to it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a very difficult, challenging time. Jaffa, I'm only here for the next 4 minutes, so the guys are going to jump on in a couple of minutes. But
okay.
and they're going to talk through a few things. Around the script and things like that is what they're going to do. And yeah, it would just be useful for us to have a catch up at some point as well.
Yeah.
No at all on my side. And what are you doing this weekend? Are you is there a football game on?
Newcastle are away to Brentford. Some real big games that we have. The next 3 games are huge for us, are all winnable. One is against Brentford, which is this Saturday. The following Saturday, we're home to Brighton. After that, I think we play Southampton. Following which, I think we play Crystal Palace and Chelsea. So I think if we can get 3 more, I think we need 5 more wins, Amar, to stay up. So we're on 22 points. We need to get up to 37. So 5 wins. And I think we're there. So hopefully, if we can get these 3 as soon as possible, it'll be amazing because it means that behind the scenes, the big boys, they can then plan on the new targets for the when the season closes. So that will be, and the quicker they get those deals done and lined up, it just makes it much easier. So hopefully, we can guarantee staying up, and the deals can be done, and Newcastle will be a different kettle of fish come the new season.
Wonderful. Okay, and I think I'm quite excited because we're going to the Liverpool game. I'm taking Lisa to the Liverpool one. Might be there at Brighton next week. Just depends.
Yeah, good. Get as many tickets as you can for all of the games if possible. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, they're all hospitality ones. I've sort of got a relationship there now with them. Getting some director seats for next season in the chairman's suite and things like that. So it's all happening. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm hoping that Martha, are you there? Is anybody there? Somebody there? Hello? Hello? Dan, Chris, Ben, Martha? Earth to Martha. Hey, Martha. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Come off mute. No. You can hear it sort of down in the background, which curiously. Chris, nice background.
Oh, thank you.
You should, that's a lovely room you have. I'm going to decorate my house like that. You should.
Working in luxury, Chris.
Huh?
Working in luxury.
Exactly.
Martha, can you talk through the customer development, the script that you shared and things like that? Still can't hear you. You might need to plug it in or out. Where it's your volume is from, or
Is it
on your
working now?
computer.
There we go.
Hey,
Yeah,
there we go.
we can hear you now,
Oh,
Martha.
great.
Excellent.
And get Jeff to relate to it from a practical point of view.
To the customer development.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Excellent.
It's a goodbye
All right,
from me.
Amar.
I'll be back
All right,
next
take
week.
care, Amar.
Take care. Bye.
Catch up with you
Good
soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
So I'll just read through what I've written.
Go ahead, Martha.
Go for it.
So it's about customer development. It's part of the lean startup process that is designed to understand the problem. It is the process of validating your offering by ensuring that it meets the customer needs and demands. The idea is that you take the hypotheses presented on your business model canvas and conduct a series of experiments to ensure product market fit. You need to assume that every part of your business model is a hypothesis that needs to be validated. The only way to validate your business model is by testing your assumptions. Sorry, I'm just letting everyone in.
Okay. So when you say testing your assumptions, do you know what that actually means from a business perspective?
So it means talking to the customers, finding out what their real problems are. Like if you've just assumed that their issue is...
Hello, Dan.
Hello there.
Good. I think we can all hear you, Dan, so that's good.
How is everyone? All right?
Yes, good.
Right.
Sorry, don't mean to stop your flow, Martha.
No, go ahead, Martha.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so if you have assumed that your customers have one problem, you create your product or your service based on that problem that you've assumed, and then you go and release it to the market, but it turns out that customers have a problem completely different. They're not going to buy it. You've wasted a lot of money and time and effort. Whereas if you do the testing beforehand, you've got a hypothesis, you go out and you talk to customers who might be interested, you try not to influence them. You should work out what their actual problem is, sort of create an empathy map, try and get some more information about their actual problem before you then spend all the time, money, effort actually developing and taking a product or a service to market. Then hopefully you haven't wasted time. You've got a validated business model, validated hypothesis, and you should then have much higher chance of having a successful business.
Is that done in the form of questionnaires, focus groups? In the past, we've done focus groups, but when you're doing these studies, how are companies doing it these days?
Well, one example that I found was actually Buffer. So they literally just put out a tweet and say, anyone who's using this aspect of our program, please join us for an online meeting where we can get your feedback. And people just turn up and say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and then it helps them reinvent their process. I mean, it's a lot easier nowadays than when you have got things like Twitter and Facebook. But before, you might have to go and stand in a mall and like actually physically ask people. But
yeah, I think probably we've all done that during our university theses, where you have to go and have big questionnaires done, and you do go in malls and you do go and stand there to do all these tick boxes and put all the questionnaires together to try and gauge, how to adapt or develop your products, which is probably the old way of doing it, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wonder, like with sort of technology companies nowadays and stuff, how much pre-validation they do and how much, they just sort of put something out there into the world and see how it lands with their customers and can change that quite quickly, potentially. I mean, I guess that's slightly different if you're in your world, Jaff, and you're putting together, a physical space for people to come and enjoy and eat and that kind of thing. But how much of that validation did you go through in launching any of your places?
I think the validation is critical. It's validation at every point, really. When you're creating a product, you have to make sure that. I mean, I remember I did marketing at university, and there was a guy called Kotler, I think, and he had these things. He invented the 4 Ps, and it was all about the total product offer to try and understand the journey of the customer or the guest, if you want to call it. So the validation, whether the comfortability of seats the position of the price, the aspirations of the food, and is how aspirational is it for them just to touch, or do you want them to reach up to it, or do you want to go standard fare? So there's so many things that need validating. I guess for us, we were quite fortunate because being in the game already, we were able to look at our existing restaurants and get a real good, strong feel for the market. And when we were launching some new products, so for example, we have an amazing cocktail menu. We actually did focus groups and some real tastings. So we had about 12 individuals that we knew understood drinks and had a background in drinks and understand cocktails. And we had a big age range of targeted guests from the age of 30 plus really. And we did about a 3-hour session. We had the mixologists coming from London. We captured everything, and they then, on the go, they were able to tell us, oh, well, this is too strong, this is too weak. What is this? Or what about a champagne cocktail? And I felt that was critical for us to get the cocktail menu correct for the local needs, because the mixologists were from London, and one of them, he was just so adamant that the cocktail menu that he was doing was perfect. And he said, look, I've launched this in Israel, I've launched this in London, I've launched this in Paris, I've launched this in other. I mean, he was a big shot. But the problem is that the business decision was on my head. And we were trying to communicate with him that this is not going to work in Newcastle, and he wasn't having it. So we had to dismiss him, and we had to lose quite a lot of money. But ultimately, it's better to dismiss them at that time rather than launching a product to market. And when you have to then change it, honestly, the pain and the cost, it far outweighs doing that due diligence at the beginning. So what Martha is saying in terms of, doing the exercise before launch is absolutely critical. You save yourself a whole lot of time, effort, and money if you do it in the correct way and follow that process.
Yeah. It's interesting because, as you know, Jeff, one of the other businesses I'm involved with at the moment is Avenue and Green, premium soft drinks, and Abu and Kamal that launched that business a couple of years back went through a lot of validation and testing and taste testing and that kind of stuff with focus groups to get the flavors right and the mix right and that kind of stuff. I think the challenge that we've got now. So I'm going out and talking to, hospitality places and that kind of stuff. And some of the places that I'm going and talk to, at the moment, our single product is just a 330 ml bottle. And some of those places that we're talking to would see it more as a mixer, or, would like to have a bit more flexibility. And whilst you could, there's Dan modeling that lovely. Whilst, you could serve a 330 ml bottle as a standalone drink, actually if you're using it as a mixer, there's probably too much in that, and they would much prefer to have that available as a 200 ml bottle as well. So we're going through some of that now, but I guess there's some of that then retroactive sort of work that needs to happen, that maybe didn't happen in the first round of validation and stuff. So it's interesting to go through that process now and get people's insight and stuff. And actually, that varies as well with the venues and what their focus is. Do you know what I mean? If they're planning to really push it as a standalone drink, then the 330 is fine. If the place is more of a cocktail bar or a spirits type bar or something like that, the flexibility of having a smaller bottle works better for them. So I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not easy. But it's so critical to get that right. Like you said, the validating it, understanding the market, and if it was just tweaks that could happen, that would be fine. But when you have to go and rechange a product line and get a smaller bottle and put it through manufacturing again, and the cost of that extra smaller bottle, it could probably just skew your business plan.
Yeah.
And add so much more money to it. It's just, to a point where it just makes a business plan a lot more challenging. So it's better to do that exercise, definitely, for sure, to begin with. And sometimes it's difficult because in the real world, you've got so much excitement and your soul thinks that, yes, this is correct. And you think, I've got the coolest thing since sliced bread and I just want to launch because I know it's going to be right. But I guess patience is the key, and doing it, going through that checklist and making sure that it's all ticked off correctly. I think that's so important.
Yes, measure twice, cut once, or whatever they say. Dan, what about your experience in that space? Because obviously your background's in shoes and footwear and that kind of stuff. So
I mean, it's actually this conversation has brought back a lot of memories in terms of the stuff that we used to go through. So footwear and clothing is generally developed on a 6-month lead time, because you're launching every spring, summer, and every autumn, winter, really, in terms of your main ranges. So you've got a period of time which is probably anywhere from 9 to 6 months out from product hitting the market nowadays with some of the bigger brands, to try and get your product range together. And it can be quite laborious because with footwear, you've got a lot of sole molds and expensive machinery and cutting dies and things like that all need to be rigged out and created, at least until you can get to the stage of a sample run. But I do remember that what we used to do, in particular with New Balance, in the European market, is we used to use a company down in London who had access to people who had houses that were used as focus group houses, because they had 2 rooms that were separated by kind of like an invisible mirror. So it would be it was like a mirror that looked like a picture, but you could only see through it from one side. And it had microphones and all sorts of things in the other room. And so what they used to do is they used to bring in a group of prospective, whether it might be mums if it was like kids footwear, or it might be like athletes if it was like, running shoes or whatever. And they bring these guys and girls in, and they sit them down, and then it wouldn't be somebody from the company, from New Balance, that would be leading the discussion. It would be somebody external, because if the company's there and they know it's by the company, they tend to say favorable things because they just want to be nice. Whereas if the person who's leading the research has framed themselves up as being an independent, and they've got a Nike shoe and an Adidas shoe and a New Balance shoe all sat in there in the mix, and they're asking questions, then the feedback will be a lot more solid in terms of what you can go in and get and understand from people. Will be a lot more genuine. And we used to take recordings of that, so full on 3-hour videos that were then transcribed, and a lot of data was taken out of that and put into our product testing and development schedule. But it was fascinating, and I'm sure it's even moved on from that, in terms of where people are now with artificial intelligence and augmented reality and all of these things that technologically you can do to gather data to validate things. It's fascinating. But I totally agree with the sentiment of the conversation, is that you've got to get things right before you launch, because correcting it afterwards is really, really painful. It's got to, and you've got to, whatever those tests are, there's a bit of pain in those tests, but it's better to go through them and do the due diligence before you sort of confirm things.
You can see why sometimes certain industries or companies are reluctant to innovate as much or to take a risk, because there's that much sort of groundwork, foundation work that you need to do at the start of the process. It can be really expensive. I mean, look at like Hollywood studios and that kind of thing. They've all fallen back on the tried and tested sequels and like the
prequels and
Marvel worlds and that kind of stuff that they know people will flock to, rather than in some different or innovative or kicking. Well, it's a safe bet in a way. And yeah, obviously, Jeff, you know, your restaurants, as we've talked about previously, have, you know, sort of broken the mold sometimes and set out in new spaces and stuff. So how has that been for you in terms of, because you're almost doing the validation for copycats, aren't you, in a way?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have I think they have touched upon it before. We just have got that mindset for constantly wanting to keep on moving forward and keep on innovating and keep on being different, keep on challenging and keep on taking risks, because we feel that if you can take calculated risk and you get them right, it gives you the advantage of being ahead of the market. And I think the fact that we've made some really silly mistakes over the years, we know what not to do. I guess our instincts have developed a lot, where we're able to see something and be able to relate it to the customer and feel that, yeah, we think that this is going to work, and we feel that this is going to make its mark in the marketplace. I mean, I can give you an example. Ongoing product development. We've just had one of our restaurant managers. She was in Dubai for 12 years, and she's got some contacts with some real amazing people. And we had a mixologist who used to. Have you heard of a restaurant group called Hakkasan?
Yeah.
It's the Alan Yao project. So Alan Yao, he was the creator of Wagamama. He founded Wagamama. He built a critical mass of around about 6 to 8 restaurants. He then sold it to the big boys, made lots and lots of money. And then he did another couple of other developments, but then he went and created a Michelin star Chinese restaurant, opened it in Tottenham Court Road in a basement unit, went to the bank, sold them this amazing concept to create this super duper premium restaurant. And I mean, it was, if you saw the bar of this place, it was just changed the mentality of Chinese cuisine, because to the point where you don't even think of that as Chinese. You just think of it as a standalone kind of restaurant, and yes, it's Chinese food, but that became secondary because everything else was so amazing. The food was amazing, got a Michelin star. They then start opening them in Shanghai and in New York and in Dubai, and so we have the gentleman that was involved in going in and instilling the cocktails in these super duper restaurants around the world. He was actually with us for the last few days, and interestingly, as we were having the conversations with him, and our whole kind of mindset was that, look, we want to do something amazing, we want to do something unique that nowhere else.
We don't want to go kind of you know, there has to be a line where you must understand that this is the range of pricing that
for something exceptional, we can charge a little bit more, but you can't go beyond this, and the flavor profile has to be this. The complication of the intricacy can't be they can't be too intricate, because it means that our staff are going to spend too much time on them. Plus, our bars are not designed as the Hakkasan bars would be. So it's all about, you have to be able to execute them, but do something aspirational. And so you can get individuals who are from different backgrounds to be able to deliver within your ethos and your framework, but you have to be clear about what that is first, and how much you can push the boundaries. So I think we've always worked on those lines. I think we know that the city quite well, but we also go around the country and we feel that, yeah, our city is ready for this level of aspiration, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm. And then does that continue throughout, Jeff? You know, do you continue to get that feedback and feed that in and change and tweak things as things go on?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've now we've got 7 brand new cocktails that are ready. So the next step for us is, it's that easy, because we're going to start giving them to our regular customers for free, and say, look, we've got 7 new cocktails that we're looking to introduce. We just wanted to get what do you think of this? So we'll have a budget towards getting those profiled and tasted amongst our existing customers, and if they give us the thumbs up, we can just launch a new menu with these products in. So we can physically test it in the marketplace and get a first-hand kind of insight, or we can get it approved by our own guests firsthand. So that's kind of a win-win situation, isn't it? It's not costing a huge amount of money, but then the product is constantly evolving and developing, and that goes back to the initial question: is customer, I guess, the development of your product and profile, and how do you do that?
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting, Joe, just in terms of those regulars, you know, that are accustomed to your product, the one, and, you know, as much as developing product lines for customers, it's developing the customers as well in terms of their own lifetime value, and you know, the sort of the personalization, if you like, or digging deep into how you can adapt a taste or a smell, or, you know, a flavor, or whatever it is, or a cocktail for the local market and for your regular guests who are really impressed with your product without disappointing them, is an art in itself. It's kind of like,
yeah,
you know, but I think with what you're doing there, it makes perfect sense. We did a collaboration with them with Land Rover on foot. It was like some outdoor shoes, and
okay,
basically they were telling us about their product development cycle. So you can imagine that on a car, it's probably about 4 years in the making to get a car to market, because it's just a super technical product, and it's not like a shirt or a shoe kind of thing. So it takes a long time. But they had about, I think, something like 500 global, like almost like test users that were introduced to their products first, and they were like you know, they were like lifetime Range Rover advocates. They used to talk about things like, well, we know that our customers slightly older. We know that when we're developing a product, we're talking about developing the product where when you come to the car on the driver's side can, when you hit the open the door button, it slants so that it's easier for the customer to get into the car. And they were talking about like the level that it would need to do that, and getting research from all these customers. And I was thinking, God, that's just like mind blowing. You know, like talking about how much your car needs to lean over for you to get in.
What happens when the four people are going in together?
I guess you need to have a younger partner.
You need a solution. Leans towards your side, but it's tipping on the other side. So you know,
don't know the answer to that one, but it's amazing the lengths that the companies, I think, will go to, you know, to get things right, and keep at the end of the day, this is all about delighting customers, right? At the end of the day, it's about
absolutely
really happy.
Yeah, customer satisfaction and exceeding the expectations, I guess, is always like an amazing thing to do. If you can exceed the expectations, you're always onto a winner, because people really like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think service levels, you know, dealing with as much as, you know, sort of getting the new stuff in there, it's making sure the consistency with the existing stuff comes up to standard every time as well. And just keep on reiterating lifetime value of customers is just super paramount.
Yeah. It's knowing your customer as well, isn't it? You know, what Land Rover develop is very different to what you know, another car company is going to develop, because their customer profile and demographic is very different. And so it is doing that you know, customer segmentation up front, isn't it, around, well, who are we actually trying to get as customers for this product or service or whatever it is, and then trying to tailor things to them, and making sure that they are the ones that are validating what you're then taking out and testing, sort of thing. You know, so that customer segmentation process has to be aligned to that as well, I think, doesn't it?
I don't think you can delight them without knowing them. You have to know something about them, for sure.
Absolutely. Good. And I don't know if Martha, if you had a whole load of things to go through, but I don't think we've got much time left. But maybe to spend a little bit too much time on that one subject.
Well, you pretty much covered everything. The main other thing we're talking about is just that we're launching a program next week, Pitch Perfect, with a residential, which is the first ever residential program done. So it's quite exciting at Hardwick Hall Hotel in Durham. So we've got. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Pitch Perfect Residential and what that entails? Because I think our listeners, they may not get it all.
Yeah. So the program is funded by Grow Tees Valley, and it's designed to help businesses in Tees Valley learn how to raise finance, prepare for investment, learn how to pitch. So we've got the actor Craig Conway. He's a local actor. He's been in quite a few big films, and so he's coming to give them sort of like confidence lessons, how to pitch well. We've got various people, investors, local investors, national investors coming to talk about what they're looking for, the sort of things they'd expect to see, how to prepare. We've got the army coming 7:30 on the second day, 7:30 morning, to do a leadership training exercise, which is going to be quite exciting. And then we've got a sort of formal dinner, not very formal, a dinner in the evening. So we've got Andy Preston, the Mayor of Middlesbrough, is coming. We've got various other sort of quite important people in the investment world in the Northeast coming to dinner to meet our participants, so they can do a bit of networking, but also so that they can have a little sort of roundtable discussion about investment, what they're looking for, some success stories to give them a bit of encouragement. Yeah, so it's going to be quite a packed 2 days. But I'm actually really excited. We've been working on it for a couple of months, so it'd be nice to get started.
Yeah, excellent. So hopefully it'll be a big success.
Yeah.
We've got a number of great, it's all ambitious businesses that are coming on the program, isn't it? Because it is about, well, how do you access finance to grow and achieve your business goals? And the thing is, at the moment, there's so many different options finance-wise out there. There's grant funding, there's loans, there's equity, there's all sorts of different pots of money and different criteria and that kind of stuff. So part of it is about understanding the options, what's best for you, but then also giving yourself the best chance of success for when you are going to access that, because any investor is going to want to hear a compelling story about where you're going, what journey you're going to go on as a business, and how you're going to achieve the growth that you're sort of telling them that you are. So there's a number of different skills and toolkits that we're sort of teaching to the businesses so that they're in a much better place to be able to access that funding successfully.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent. I think we've got probably just to give our listeners a heads up. Sometimes Spice FM really just kicks in 11 on the dot, so we may not know that, and we might get cut off. So if that does happen, accept our apologies. But I think we've still got a couple of more points. Martha, is there a website or anywhere that people can go and look into the event that's coming up?
Yes, if you look on our SME Centre of Excellence website, there's some information. Or for more specifically about Pitch Perfect, the Tees Valley Business Hub website has a whole page about it there. And if anyone is Tees Valley based, we will be doing another cohort later in the year. So keep an eye out for the next time. And
actually that leadership session on the Wednesday morning with the Army is a slightly more open session. So we will probably have a few other businesses and individuals that are coming along to that. So if anybody is interested, then they can drop us an email to customercare@smecov.co.uk.
7 days a week.
There you go.
98.8
Have a lovely weekend.
Nice one. Thanks, Jack.
Invasion
Have a
of
good one.
Ukraine is entering its second day with reports of several explosions.